Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Interview Wednesday. It is June 22nd, 2022. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, please just open up the Zoom chat window and you can put any questions you have in there. Also, if you'd like to network with other people who are on the call, you're welcome to put your personal information in there. It's a great way to network with everybody else who's on the call. Anybody watching on Facebook, thank you for joining us today. Please just enter your questions in the comment field. We'll be sure to get those questions answered for you at the end of the presentation. Please note this event is being recorded. It's currently live on Facebook. The recording will be on the Career DFW Facebook page and the Career USA YouTube channel for others to view in the future. By participating in this event, you give consent for your name and picture to appear. Please note that any comments you put in the Zoom chat window will not appear in the recording. Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jeff Morse. Back in 2008, I started a website called careerdfw.org, a website to help those who are unemployed in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. I started a second website in 2012, careerusa.org, to help those around the United States. I have written a book called What I've Learned About Your Job Search That You May Not Know. You can get it on Amazon for 15 bucks, or if you see me Friday after the North Dallas meeting, I'll have them for $10 a piece. Since 2007, I've been facilitating and leading the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group. I'll tell you about our upcoming program. We have a really interesting program coming up this Friday at the end of this session. And since 2017, I've been a member of the Practice Interview team, and you'll hear more about that in just a second. The Practice Interview team does not have a candidate to be interviewed today, so we've decided to go back and we're going to be showing you session 11 of the 13-part workshop that talks about informational interviewing. So before we get to that session, real quick, we'll hear from Mark and Walt about what they offer. Like I said, this is all a recording, and if you have any questions, we'll be sure to get those answered for you at the end of the session.
All right, well, thank you, Jeff. And let me tell you a little bit about what's available to you as a job seeker and a little bit about my background as well. So I lead the Practice Interview team and have been doing that since 2014. And I got started a year before that as a volunteer, as a panelist, providing the interviews. And that was right after I got laid off for the third time from the telecommunications equipment market. So most of these companies are not around anymore, but it used to be that they made specialized electronics for the phone companies like Verizon and AT&T to provide service to your home or your office. And it's been an industry that started shrinking with the recession in early 2000. And so between then and 2012, I got laid off 3 times. But I got involved in the pit crew and used that experience to, bring encouragement, frankly. All those layoffs and all the people that got laid off along with me found viable employment. And even, during those recessionary times when the layoffs occurred. And so I come with a lot of confidence that you can find employment as well. And I focus on helping you interview well. So that's what the PIT crew is about, the Practice Interview team. We give a very personalized and customized interview experience based on a job description that you provide, and of course, your resume. So we have a group of volunteers. I have a group of volunteers. They've all been hiring managers, and they've all been through or currently in job transition. So we're also very empathetic to your situation and provide a safe and supportive environment for you to come and practice interviewing and learn how to interview better through that practice. So I encourage you to practice early and practice often. The more you practice, the better you will be at it. The more challenges you'll face during the practice interviews that are going to come up in your real interviews, and you'll be prepared and confident that you can handle those. So when you're ready to practice, just send your information, that's your resume and job description that you picked out, to dallaspitcrew@gmail.com. And I say a job description that you picked out because it doesn't have to be an opportunity that you're already pursuing. It might be your dream job description, just something to practice against so you can build your skills, find out where you may need some improvement, and find out where you're doing well so you don't have to be concerned about that. So that's what the PIT crew is about. Practice, practice, practice. So practice early, practice often. I there's my LinkedIn profile, and I'm going to put it in the chat window. So there's the information for the Dallas Pit Crew email address and my LinkedIn profile. And I just encourage you to send me a note when you asked the link in that said we met on Interview Wednesdays. And so I have a place where we met, and I'll add you to my network, which of course is going to help you with your informational interviewing, finding contacts inside your target companies, and informational interviewing, which is today's topic. The Pit Crew also has one other way to help you out, and that is one-way interviews. So this is a thing, I guess it started in 2020, where you get a series of questions that you record, video recording. Sometimes the tool does it. Sometimes I saw last week, somebody was asked to make a recording. Okay, so there were 6 or 7 questions. Record yourself on your phone answering these questions and send it in to us. So, but the Pit Crew offering is a professional tool. So it's called Easy Hire. It's a tool that companies use to provide to manage their their one-way interviews. I'm sorry. And so we've got access to it through Jeff's effort as donation. And I can give you an opportunity to practice that. The way the Pit Crew works is I'm mainly focused on helping you practice. So I give you the questions in advance, you know what they are, you can prepare for them, and then you get a chance to interact with the tool to see what it's really like. And once you get started, you just get a link to go to the tool's application. And after that, there's very little involvement for me. You'll get a second link with your recording after you're done. And you can share that if you choose to share it, but you don't have to. Nobody else will see it. So that's the way it goes. 4 questions. Questions you're likely to be asked in every interview. You'll get them in advance, and you can prepare and deliver them. So that's the one-way interview. And then finally, I told you there were some things on offer here. Finally, I do coaching, but I just coach on one topic, and that is, why did you leave your last job? So, and it may not be your last job. I had a session earlier this week, and we ended up reviewing the entire career to see what the themes were inside the career to help explain some job transitions. And so it might be something in your past that you're concerned about, or is confusing or difficult to talk about. Let's have a conversation, a confidential conversation about how to cover that. So just reach out to me at dallaspitcrew@gmail.com, and we'll schedule that session as well.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. Would you like to interview without the fear of death? Would you like to have an interview where you don't have to be so concerned and stressed out and have a lot of anxiety? Well, that's the kind of coaching that I offer through the Interview Success Workshop. It's a free workshop. You need to be registered to attend. So what we do is we cover the 11 basic categories of questions, and we learned how to sell who we are, what we do, and how we can help. Had a couple of interviews yesterday, and there was nothing in either one's responses about how they could help. So we covered that in detail and coached how we could actually get that inside of our interview responses. It's a great thing to do, and you also want to learn how to differentiate yourself from those other candidates, how to be memorable, how will someone remember you. For those of you that have interviewed in the past, you know it's kind of hard sometimes to pick out a candidate because they're kind of all getting mixed up. Well, how can we be the one that stands out from all the rest? So that's the kind of thing I focus on, and I do it in a very informal environment. I usually do it on Tuesdays from 10 to 12. Look me up on the About section of my LinkedIn page and give you some more details about how the process works. But we can have some fun while we're learning. It doesn't have to be all that bad, right? That's why you come and practice, so that you can get better. And so I'll be glad to help you do that. So sign up, send me an email. I'll give you some availability dates. You can get online with me, and we'll have some learning without squirming.
So today is all about informational interviews, session 11. And really, this is the Walt Glass Informational Interview webinar with an introduction by Mark McDonald. So there we go. I'm going to just have a few slides and try to put this into context. But remember, the top line or the subtitle here is how to shorten your job search. So how to shorten your job search through informational interviews. All right, so here's all 13 sessions, and we are on session number 11. And I want to show this because if you're new, all 13 sessions are available on the Career USA YouTube channel, and you can look at them in any order. When Walt and I first put this together, we were assuming that you were brand new, so the first 5 are for people who are brand new to the job search and cover just the topic of how to prepare to interview, how to be prepared, how to be well prepared for an interview. And there's quite a few things that you need to do there. Then the next group of 5 is all about effective interviewing. And so we just wrapped that up last week, and there's some good things in there about asking questions and demonstrating enthusiasm and building rapport. And then this last group of 3, informational interviews today and dealing with difficult interviewers next week. And then the last week, the last Wednesday of July, avoiding common interview mistakes, call it interview crashes. So those will be coming up. But like I said, if you're concerned about any one of these particular topics, you can go to the Career USA YouTube channel and find the same content in the same order that Walt and I did in January, February, and March, and take a look at those. You can look at them in any order, whatever will help you the most. All right, so this is a very busy slide, but this is the whole picture. And one of the things that occurs to me, well, for quite a while, for 2 or 3 years at least, I have been trying to figure out why people don't avail themselves of informational interviews more often. And you know, somebody's asked a question, it's kind of difficult for them, and certainly they can be challenging. Walt's going to, you know, take you through all the steps, but I wanted to, at a very high level, you know, explain the motivation behind informational interviews. And they may still be a little bit tricky for you, but the payoff is tremendous. And so that's what this next few slides talk about. So you'll see on these slides a little green car. That's you, the race driver, and the pit crew. And we're going to take you around this circle. And along the way, we're going to talk about informational interviews and a very small about networking and target companies. Then we're going to talk about the benefit you get over here on the other side when it comes time to apply for the job, and what happens with the black hole and becoming a preferred candidate and having more effective interviews as a result of your informational interviewing. One thing I want to cover on this slide is, I always keep in mind, I think this is a good statistic. Right here, this text right here, job posting statistics. So this is for jobs that are posted. And in the next slide, I'm going to talk about the hidden job market and tell you how big it is. But for suffice it for now, it's several times bigger. The hidden job market is several times bigger than the posted job market. Okay, so all these numbers get expanded when you start considering the hidden job market. But for posted jobs, 30% of them are filled internally. And if you've been in the job search for a while, you've probably encountered this, where the recruiter or the HR person lets you know that the internal candidate filled the role. So that's not your imagination, that's a thing. A large number of job postings eventually become filled by internal candidates. And the data that I got this from was like 30%, so a little bit less than 1/3. Now, the interesting thing is 40% of job postings are filled by internal recruiters. These are recruiters who work for the company using their first and second degree connections. So this is people who they've talked to themselves, maybe on the phone, maybe face-to-face, but also second degree referrals to the recruiter, which is an employee who brings someone forward as a good candidate for a position. So that's 40% of the posted jobs. And then another 10% of the posted jobs are filled by the internal recruiter from their applicant tracking system or from a database like LinkedIn, whatever they use, but a database, you know, and this is where your information goes, the applicant tracking system black hole, we call it, because you have about a 2% chance of being contacted if that's all you do is apply and put your information into the database. But a fair number of placements do originate or end up coming out of that black hole, it's just pretty low probability that you, among the other 100 or 150 applicants for a particular job, get the call and even get an opportunity to participate in the interviews. And then about 20% are filled by agency recruiters. These are recruiters outside of the company, and they have their similar techniques. Their first and secondary connections in their own. Some of them have their own databases. And so now if you take out the ones that are filled internally, right? If you just remove those, what this is about 2/3 of job postings are filled by internal recruiters, by company recruiters. And so it's important to get inside a company, and that's what we're going to talk about next. Okay, so one of your goals of networking is to find the hidden job market. So when you meet people, you're going to introduce yourself. You may use your elevator story, and so I call those contacts. They're just people you've met. Maybe a large number of the people you know on LinkedIn, you don't know that well. They're just contacts. You don't know if they'd be willing to help you or not. You meet a lot of people. You're going to find some people, though, that you kind of naturally have a connection with. You may have something in common. They may be people from your church. They may be people in your children's activities. They may be the book club. They may be things that you do. And people who have a connection with you, something in common, are more willing to help you. It's just the way it is, okay? And there's kind of different strengths in this because, connections or champions or supporters, they all basically mean the same thing. But over time, you can nurture those connections and they become even stronger and stronger. I mean, so they really begin to work for you, right? They really want to help you find a job because you have this thing in common. You've built up some rapport. And so you have to go through a lot of contacts to, find a fair number of connections who will help you out. But the payoff's pretty big. Those kinds of connections give you access to the hidden job market. And I want to use this slide to talk about how big the hidden job market is. Best I can tell, and you'll see widely varying numbers, the best I can tell it's about 3 times the size of the posted job market. And let me just give you an example, a couple of examples, but in one example, the first one here is from my background, and we typically had a calendar year financial planning year. In September, we would start planning for the next year, and of course, part of that planning was how many new people we're going to hire. And so we might put together a plan, and all these plans are contingent upon continued financial performance, right? So we put together a plan for the next year. And so let's say decided we were going to grow the engineering team. And so the first quarter we'd hire 3, second 3, we'd hire a dozen new engineers next year, 3 per quarter, contingent upon continuing to do well, right? If the financials changed, then that plan could change, but either up or down, right? There might be some management reserve there for a couple of other people if things go well. And of course, there'll be a cutback in new hiring if things don't go so well. Now, December comes along and we've got this plan now to hire 3 new engineers in January, February, or March. And so 3 postings go out, okay? Now there's some data behind this, right? It's not just we're gonna hire 12 engineers. There's a description of what they're going to work on, what kind of background we need. So that's all part of the strategic plan. And so a candidate shows up for one of those 3 jobs, not really a good match for any of those 3, but could be and maybe is a match for one that's planned a little farther down in the year. And if you are a really strong candidate, those hidden jobs available, but nobody knows about them except for a small number of people, become a available job for you. Now they may, because of corporate governance, if a good candidate comes up and they want to accelerate the hiring process, they may still have to post the job, but you arrived, you triggered the event that opened up that job, and for you, it was completely hidden. So that's one way that there's a lot of positions available but aren't advertised. And so one reason I say 3 times. I think the hidden job market is approximately 3 times the posted job market. Another example is sort of a short-term event, right? So, for instance, I was talking to a candidate today who applied for a job, and I asked them, well, how did you find out about this job? And they found out through one of their professional organizations. And so the way it happened was the company was looking for a certain, I can't remember now what it was, but a certain skill set. And so they called the organization, the local Dallas chapter of people who do that. And they said, well, I'm getting ready to post this job, and I'm gonna make it to you, available to you first, so you can post it to your members. So there you go. Now this job is for a while, for a few days, maybe a week, is only known to a small number of people, okay? Not known to the general public. And then eventually it ends up on their webpage, or it ends up on Indeed. And now everybody knows about it, so it's posted, but for a period of time, it was not posted. It was only available to a select number of people. And of course, you want to be one of those select number of people. And so that's a job that's hidden for a week or two. And if you can find out about it in advance, then you've tapped into the hidden job market. And your path to that is these people you make who you have something in, the people you meet who you have something in common with, who become your supporters or your connections. So that's how you find the hidden job market. But it would be even better if you kind of proactively pursued this. So developing an advantage by having connections in several companies that may be interesting to you. And so that starts with making a list of target companies. And Walt's going to mention this. We're not going to talk a lot about it, but there's some presentations from Mike Ray and Chip Lipson in particular that will tell you how to find your target companies. But you need to be, you're trying now with purpose to build supporters and champions inside companies. And you identify the target companies. You ask when you meet people, your ask is of them is, do they know someone, or perhaps know someone who knows someone who works at this company? Or you might mention a couple of companies. It's a very simple ask, because just about anybody you meet who's not, you may not have that much in common, but if you give them a simple ask, they may respond to that, right? The simpler the better. So you're just asking for a name. That's all. You know somebody, or know somebody who knows somebody who works at EDS. I don't think EDS exists anymore. How about HPE? HPE Enterprises, or National Data, or Toyota. And so once you get that name, now you want to set up an informational interview. And so through your informational interviews, you're going to be seeking advice and feedback. I think there's only one rule about informational interviews, is you don't ask for a job, okay? You're seeking advice and feedback, and you're gaining through that information and insight about the company. Now, along the way, you're going to get these names, you're going to call these people. You may find you have something in common, okay? And it's probably more likely that you have something in common if they work in an area that you're interested in, or for a company that you'd be happy to go to work for. It's more likely that you do have something in common professionally. And so they can also, some of those will not, be able to help you that much, and not all that interested in helping you, but more than a few will likely become connections or supporters of your cause to get inside the company. And we hear about this all the time in the pit crew, where people have made some contact with somebody they didn't know before inside the company, and that's kind of paved the way for their candidacy. And Walt's going to talk all about how you do this, and what you ask for, and how you approach the target person you want to talk to the hidden job market, and much more targeted and purposeful than just meeting people and hoping that they have something you're interested in or they work. Now it comes time, you've done this, you've done some informational interviewing with your list of target companies. You have a few connections inside these organizations, and a job description comes up that looks good for you, okay? Now, before you'd done this informational interviewing, you would just apply, you put your information into the applicant tracking system black hole, and you had about a 2% chance of being contacted through that effort. But really not much effort and really not much return. And so instead, since you now have a connection or two or three inside this company, you can decide who you want to reach out into the company and say, would you refer me, or I'm interested in this position, it looks like a good match for me, would you like to be the one who refers me into the company? Now, a lot of times employees get a bonus for this, and if it goes all the way to being hired. And so some of them are quite eager to do this and can make some good money. So now you're not even going through the ATS, okay? You're going to ask the employee to take your resume and drop it off with the recruiter, or maybe even the hiring manager. Although, yeah, maybe even the hiring manager, okay? And now you become a second-degree connection to the internal recruiter, or a second-degree connection to the hiring manager, right? Because an employee, someone they know, has referred you. And in that case, where you have a contact inside the organization, even if it's the recruiter, you have about a 50% chance, 1 out of 2, 50% chance of being contacted. But there's even more advantage. I call that the fast lane, okay? And I've seen, there was a story in the pit crew where someone applied for a job, and 4 or 5 months went by, and they ran into somebody they used to work with, and they found out that person worked at where they had applied. Okay, so they asked, would you, sponsor? I applied 5 months ago. Would you sponsor me? Would you let the recruiter know that I'm a good match for this job? And within hours, they received a call from the recruiter, and we're ushered into the queue, right, to be interviewed for this job, because they moved from that ATS black hole to now a referred candidate, and things started to happen immediately. So that's the way it can work. But now there's even more to be gained by informational interviewing, because you get into the fast lane, you go right to the hiring manager, to a screening interview, but the information that you gain through your informational interviews gives you insight and knowledge that other candidates may not have. It's likely other candidates don't have, and so that makes you a more effective interviewer. You know things and have insight that other candidates don't have. You can be much more confident in explaining how you can help, based on the information and insights you gained in your informational interviews, and that will shorten your job search significantly. So there you are, and interviewing effectively, and then starting your new job, and then, and then leaving stage left with the checkered flag. There we go. So that's the big picture. I hope this has helped you understand informational interviews, where they fit in, target companies, how they help, and how you can use the information you gain to inform your interviewing and shorten your job search. And by the way, if it doesn't work out, one of these cycles doesn't work out, you have other circles like this going at different companies, waiting for the opportunity to arise for a good position that you can be referred into.
All right. So what have we learned so far? So in summary, we say, well, for the posted jobs, about a third of them are done by recruiters, internal, external. A lot of our job postings go into the our applications go into the black hole. It's like a 2% return on that. So we've learned that job posting is a part of the way to go, but not very much time to be spent there. Do not limit ourselves to job postings only. That's kind of a subtle message in coming out and saying, hey, wait a minute. maybe I want to find a company where I want to work and a job that I'd like to do, but it's not posted, but let me find out what's going on in the company. Maybe they need my help and need my assistance. And so don't let the fact that there's a job not posted stop us, because there's a lot of jobs that are posted internally, but not externally yet. And that's that hidden job market. So why don't we chase that market instead? So kind of keep our ideas open about how we're going to find employment, find that work, find the job that we want in the place where we want to do it. So that's kind of summarizing that. So let's get into some of the specifics about informational interviews, which is probably the strongest and best tool to use in accomplishing that fact of getting you into that particular position quicker. So a couple of questions for you. And so I've asked Jeff if he'll pull up a poll. So how many days a week do you spend applying online?
Those people on Facebook, please just enter you can just enter A, B, C, D, E, or F in the comment field.
Now, I can almost tell you who answered A, B, C, D, E, F, how long you've been in the job search. Because there's kind of a process where, okay, well, let me get out there and take those posted jobs and start applying, because that's the easy way to do it. I'm very active, I'm busy, I'm doing things, I'm trying to make progress. Then we learn it's not working out so well, and then we get into some other avenues and say, well, maybe I need to change what I'm doing and do something a little differently. So the purpose for Mark and I to talk about information interviewing today is to help you shorten that job search and say, here's something you can do to help do that. And then we've got some concerns about doing it. Some of us are not really happy about doing it. So let me ask another poll. So let's go to the second poll. So the next poll is, how many days per week do you spend networking, or I-N-E, informational interviewing, or creating connections, or finding new people, scheduling time to schedule conversations with people? All that's included in the general field of networking, which will help you actually do your informational interviews. Well, these answers are also indicators of how long you've been searching too. So I don't have this poll, but I would ask you just a question for you to answer yourself. How many days should you spend networking? Because we all know and have the intellectual capability to understand that networking is better, but there are some barriers and reasons that we don't do it. So we'll talk about that too. So before we do an informational interview, we need to prep. All right, that kind of goes without saying, but I say it anyway. I love it when somebody says, I'm going to introduce to you a person who needs no introduction. Well, okay, well, don't introduce them then. But preparation for informational. How can we go through these kind of list of things? Boy, I hit my mouse and it just goes crazy. First of all, in your introduction, if you want to meet someone, tell someone, what would you tell them? What would you say up front? And if you're just casually meeting somebody and they were to ask you, what do you do? Well, this would be what you want to have to answer that question, this unique selling proposition. That's what Jack Bick's term is. He's a career coach. But it's also your unique value proposition. So I help people gain skills and confidence for successful hiring interviews. All right, a sentence, not too many words, something specific. And it kind of tells you what I do and what the results of what I do are. So it's how I help in that phrase. And so I'm a big fan of I am, I do, I help. If you've heard anything about the interviewing side, you'll know those three terms from me. Anyway, something that you can say to gain attention, to tell people something, give them context, and also to be different than other people. So that unique selling proposition or the like. Always need to have your resume handy. and your bio handy, all right? It's not that you want to throw resumes in anybody's face. In fact, the bio, I think, is the better tool for your informational interviews to use and have ready for those. Doesn't say I'm looking for a job. Informational interviews are not meant to say I'm looking for a job and I want you to help me find a job. It's to help you find the information out that would help you get a job. It's more than that. And so, but it can morph, okay? So they might want to ask you for your resume later as you go through this process. And so you want to have these handy. If you're meeting face-to-face, person-to-person, you've got these somewhere on you. And online, of course, you can always send something to someone via online. You have to have your attributes and achievements inventory, which is how you can help. What can I do for you? What are the things that I am accountable to? What am I responsible for? But if I speak in terms of, I help increase revenue. I like to save customers. I like to do these types of things. What are the attributes in your achievements? Who am I and what can I do? So that's an I am and I help side. What am I like? You need to be prepared to describe that to people, even though in the information interview that might not come up, but you need to have that preparation in case it does, because some of these things can change. You have your references. If you don't have your references prepared and ready, because the results of an informational interview that might morph into a written interview, they might want to contact a reference to talk about something. So you should have your references ready and available in case they come up. It's too late if somebody says, I want to talk with one of your references and you don't have any. And then you prioritize target industries and companies. So dadgummit, I thought I spelled that right. I corrected that the last time. I still haven't got it. So your prioritize target industry and companies. I would strongly suggest, and Jeff, if you'll put that into the chat window, that you look at the session that Jeff's recorded for Kip Lipson and Mike Ray, and Mark alluded to it earlier on reference solutions. It's a tool to help you find and vet target companies. So I strongly recommend you do that. Most of the stuff that I'm going to talk about today assumes that you've done that and you have target companies and you have people that you are targeting. You can't just get into a conversation without having something in mind about what you're looking for. And then you can research your potential connections. So who are the people I need to talk to? What do I need to know about them? And so LinkedIn is a great place to find out that information. One of the strongest things you're looking for on LinkedIn is a common connection, something in common between you and that person. It might be knowing someone in common. It might be you went to the same school, but it's finding something in common that builds a connection. And I'll talk about contacts and connections in a few minutes. There's also a piece of software out there called crystalknows.com that actually analyzes a person's LinkedIn page and comes out and tells you about their person and how you deal with them and some things like that. Is anybody online that has used Crystal Knows and could speak a short sentence or two about it? Okay, I assume not. But take a look at that. There is one, you can do one for free, but from the information that we've heard and from the person that we found out who lives out in Phoenix, I can't remember her name, but she has used it and said it's really good. And she analyzed Jeff, and Jeff thought it was 80–85%, if I remember right, on track of that. So that's a possibility for you to use on people to get prepared. Remember that we're always on stage. We're never not networking. We're networking right now. You're participating. Now, whose face do I see on the screen? Now, I've got limited view right now, but when I see everybody's face on the screen, I'm making some information, some connection, some assumptions about you, all right? There are those of you that show your virtual screen, I mean your cell phone screen, and other of you turn off your visual. And so I suggest that you get to the point where you feel good about turning on your visual so that you can see and others can see you too. That's going to be, I think, a better help for you. So I know there's reasons sometimes for you not to do it, but I suggest if you can get to that point, it would probably be better for you. Then the information interview targets. There are sometimes unplanned, then there's the planned. The unplanned don't happen as often as the planned, the ones that we target, the ones that we go after. So who are the people that have the information we seek? So every informational interview that you have, you should have a specific amount or data or information about what you want to find out. It's not just, I'm gonna just go in and talk to somebody. Somebody said the question is, you know, I was talking to somebody, but we kind of ran out of stuff. And how, you know, what is it I can do? Well, you might meet people. So if you have that value proposition and talk about what you do, but you want to talk about them. You talk about them first. So who are those people? Or those people who know the people who have the information we seek. So that's getting a referral, just like we might do for interviewing for a job. So who are the people inside of the target companies, inside the target industry segments? So some people don't have to be in the industry or in the company, but we're just looking for some information that other people can help us with because they are an expert or they have a lot of knowledge about that. And it doesn't necessarily have to be inside the company or inside that industry. Just to note, you've heard of the 6 degrees of separation, which says at most you're 6 people away from finding any person in the world, which is an amazing, amazing number and statistic. What's even more amazing to me is that 2 links have a 50% chance of success. So if you're asking people to find somebody in a company, if that's your situation, and you ask both for the 1st and 2nd degree connections, which is, do you know someone, or maybe you know someone who at this particular company that might know someone there. So then you're getting the 1st and 2nd degree. If you ask a person, do you know anybody, they'll think and that they'll limit their answer to do they know somebody or not. But if you say, do you know somebody who might know somebody, you have really widened your possibilities and chances of success. Networking is relationshiping. That's my term for it. It's helping others. It seems a little one-sided sometimes. It says, oh, well, I'll start my informational interviews and do all my networking tasks now that I need help, all right? Now that I want to contact somebody that I haven't contacted in years, but now I need help, so I'll call them. The only thing that people don't do that are kids when they want some money. They don't wait. They just come ahead and ask. We don't have to worry about them. So what's a contact? What's a connection? I'm going to define a contact, someone we know little about. Basically, it's someone we don't know much. And they may not know much about us, but we don't know much about them. Now, some people, there's a lot of people that I meet that know something about me through the interview success workshop. And they know my coaching, they've experienced it, and they do that. And I know a little bit about them. Okay, I've seen their job description, perhaps, so their resume. And so I know a little bit, but I'm going to tell you, I can't remember all of those. I just can't. But if someone were to talk to me and say, hey, I went through your workshop, we've got an instant connection. So who are the people that we want to develop into a connection? So what's a connection? So I would suggest we do this. We want to look at who knows us. You know, it used to be who you know, but today it's who knows you, right? The ones that know you are better able to represent you to others. So I suggest we rate them first by knowledge about us. Do they know our character? Do they know our experience and our value? Do they know the I am, I do, I have? What parts of that do they know? If it's high, that would mean they have significant knowledge. Medium would have some, and low says, well, a little knowledge. So I'll look at all my contacts and see how do they become a connection? Which ones are connections? And I rate them this way. Now there's a second rating I want to do is how willing are they to help us? There's a lot of people that have a lot of knowledge about us, but they're not willing to help. So we have to figure out and find out how will they help us and how much? Of course, those that are happy to help are high on the list. So they get a 1. And so the medium provides some and the lows provide none. So how can I tell if somebody might be happy to help? I'll give you one example. I go out to LinkedIn, and so I'm looking at Patty, and I look there and I see she has been out of a job in the last 2 or 3 years, or last couple of years. She's been looking for a job. You know that people who've been looking for a job in the last year or two are a lot more willing to help other people who are looking for a job as well. If a person has worked in a company for many years and it doesn't look like they haven't been looking for a job, in general, that doesn't mean they don't, but in general, they're not as able or willing to help us. But those who have been unemployed for a little while will generally be glad to help us each. So I'm looking for the A1s, all right? So once we get them, we have the people, then we can focus on a prioritized list. Looks like we want to spend more time on the A1s, and the A2s. Then we go to the B1s, the B, et cetera. And once we get that, we can start working on it. But remember, we still want to continue expanding our network, expanding our connections. So that's a continual process. We don't just do it for a little while. You keep adding names going on. How do you add a name? You build relationships. So let's talk about referrals. So somebody's giving you a referral and say, hey, you ought to talk to Mark. He knows about how to help you discuss and answer the question, why did you leave your last job? He's an expert on that. He's really good at it. All right. So the referral source might just say, yeah, just call Mark and tell him Walt sent you. Okay. And you get that kind of response. So that's called a cool call. Now the warm call has a good, better, and best in the warmth. The good is where I send Mark an email and say, hi, I know Patty, and she's interested in finding out about your coaching on why you left your last job. Would you be willing to talk to her? Right? And I get a response back from Mark. Then I send an email to Mark and to Patty, and I say, want to introduce you to each other. Patty, I know you're interested in why you want to leave your last job, and Mark is interested in helping you do that. And then I kind of step back and take it away, all right? And so that's better. I get a meeting between you, and I get a trilateral meeting is where I'll say, hey, wait a minute. So we're in a room now where we're back face to face and we're talking about something. And I say, wait a minute, come over here. Let me get you to meet Mark. And I pull you across the room and say, here's Mark. Mark does this kind of thing. You mentioned you were looking for some help with that you had some issues and concerns about how to answer that question. And I introduce you right there on the spot, all right? That's really good. So it's a lot easier to do when we're meeting back face to face, but we can still do that online some. And the hot call is when I call Mark and say, Mark, Patty's in, just talk to you. He said, okay. And he calls Patty right away. He doesn't wait for Patty to call. He calls. So that's a hot call. There are a couple of people out there that I've met that I've referred to. Then I send them an email back and said, how'd it go? I said, have you talked? He said, oh yeah, I've already called them. I've already talked to them. So he reaches out to the people immediately. And guess what? He was looking for a job for about a year, not too long ago. Perseverance is required. The job search can be up and down, as you well know. You get negatives, you get no's, you do things, and it's kind of like the funnel. Some are successful and some are not. It's like the parable of the sower of the seed. Some fall among the thorns, some don't grow, but some fall in the fertile ground. And if you nurture them, they will grow. So that's the thing that we have to look at is perseverance. But let's step back a minute. What is an informational interviewing anyway? So what I would say is from the definition that I have here, it's a meeting where you initiate to gain additional knowledge from a person that's got the experience. All right. It's not a job interview because we're interviewing, right? And the ball's in our court as to its content and to its flow. So in job search, we have a meeting featuring a conversation about our career, company, or industry. We want to find something out about those three things between you and someone who may be able to help you get that job in the future, directly or indirectly. Directly, they know someone in the company. Indirectly, they may know somebody who knows somebody. Or they may suggest somebody else you can talk to, those kinds of things. So that's what we're looking at, just the basics. I think you all understand and know that. But one of the basic advantages and positive things about it is we get to go to the front door into a targeted company. Now, I have a tough time saying, is it the front door or the back door? Because people, I think the front door is applying for a job. So, okay, if that's your definition, then we're going to use the back door. But I call applying for a job really the back door because it's so unproductive in that this is the front door. So a little semantics lesson from what I think about these words. And it's also a way, really, did I miss that? There we go. I'm having to move some things around. A way to build a mutually beneficial relationship. So our objective with informational interviewing is to build that relationship, right? We build the relationship first before we ask for help. That's a key thing. So when we're talking to people, we want to talk about them. We want them to tell us some things. And so we're interested in them, getting them talking about that. Then they will turn and then ask something. You will tell me about you, or tell me what you're doing, or whatever it might be. But you let them talk first because you want to find out something about them. You want to mention something. Maybe you see something in common, whatever it might be. But you don't build a relationship with just you talking. You've got to have them talking. So I always suggest we let them go first and find out about that first in your questions. So why do we do it? Well, we might want to look to somebody to get an assessment of, where do you think we still, where I stand? I'm looking to do this. What do you think I can accomplish that? Or what do I need to do it takes to accomplish that? And what skills do I need? All right. Is my strategy correct? What do you think about my resume? A lot of people are wanting to get a lot of feedback on resumes. I just wonder how much time you spend on resumes versus how much time you spend on practice interviewing, right? And so we spend an awful lot of time on resumes. I don't know, sometimes you were on version 37 or whatever. So while I'm on the subject, I suggest you have a master resume, and then you pull that in and say, this one I'm going to tailor. I'm just going to take off a few bullets. I'm going to reorder maybe a couple of things in priority, and it's going to say really the same thing that's on LinkedIn, but it's going to be shorter than what's on LinkedIn. But it'll still be the same type of stuff. To be consistent, that's very important to be consistent. So I want to find out about a company or an industry or the competition or the products or the services. I'm looking to gain information so I can go in, particularly if I'm changing industries. So I'd really like to talk to some people in that industry to learn the lingo, to learn what's important, what's going on, what are the trends and things like that. So that when I'm talking to people, I can talk intelligently about that industry. So let me arm myself, do my research, do my homework, so that when I get into the real interview, I can talk about that industry as an example. Well, that's also to find out if we want to work there. So you're interested in the company, so you're still in the vetting process. It looks like it's pretty good. So let me talk to somebody in there and find out what it's like to work there, right? So that's one of the things. What are the problems, challenges, issues that face? And that's a really good thing to talk about to a person internally, because you might be able to help them with some of those things. Understanding the culture is pretty important. I think it's extremely important if you're trying to vet a company. If the culture doesn't match, forget it. Just don't go there, because nothing else is going to matter. So finding out about those things, do a match, do they occur between us and the company? And let's find out what it's really like working in a certain place. I talked to a pharmacist. She said the stress, the strain, the pressure of being a pharmacist is just too much. Now, I'm amazed at what pharmacists' knowledge have with chemistry. I mean, I never figured out chemistry. You put these two things on the left and you put an arrow and these things happen on the right. And I never understood how to put the stuff on the right. It was terrible, but they know an awful lot. And she was very unhappy. She sells dresses in a boutique and is extremely happy. She's really fine what she wants to do. So one of the really realities, I also remember when I was in college and I went to my dentist, I thought about being a dentist. So I asked the dentist if I could talk to him one day and talk about, I said, oh yeah, come on in. And we made an appointment. I was in his office and we talked for about 30 minutes and I learned I didn't want to be a dentist. So those kind of things can help, and people are willing to help you. They really are. Expand your professional network. All right. So you always want to be expanding your information and contacts and connections. All right. Who might become a resource? Continue building that and improving your interview skills, your industry knowledge, confidence, all that information. It was on Mark's circular diagram of saying, when you get information, you go through that informational interviewing and gain that knowledge, skills, and abilities to be able to talk about better things. When you get into the real interview, it's going to help you with that. Make a big difference. And of course, uncover new job opportunities that aren't accessible to you as an outsider. So that's that hidden job market. Go into a company that you like, find out what's going on. They may not have a job posted, but through your conversation with them and you start talking about you a little bit of how you can help them do these kinds of things, that can go into say, well, we might want to have some further conversations and talk to you about working here. Of course, we want to learn what our peers with the traits and skills like ours have done. So what's going on in your world? How it seems like we have these things in common. What's been your background? What's your history? Where you hit all that sort of thing. So that's another way of looking at it. Understand what's most important to employers. So if you're talking to the company, people in the company that you're interested in, what's the most important things to them? We want to be able to address those and find out what they are. It'd be great to have all this knowledge before the interview, right? And of course, apply our knowledge to do a better resume and make a more positive impression during the job interview. And I should have put this one first, probably, is discover what you can do for them. A sentence about that. Have any of you been told by someone and said, well, listen, if you need anything, let me know? Bet you have. Now, how many of you have needed something and called them? I bet you haven't. Therefore, let's not do that. That's not offering assistance. That's not helping at all. But discovering what we can do for them is. So we don't know what to do. We don't know how to help them, whatever. Well, let's find out. So that's in that informational interview. When you find out what's going on, you may discover some things. You're looking for things you can discover this. Okay, maybe I can help them with that. Maybe put them in touch with somebody or send them an article or do something like that. What can you do for them? It's not just, when I was in leadership and I was talking with the group and I said, what do you do if one of your employees has a death in the family? Do you go to the funeral? And several people said, no, you don't go to the funeral. I said, well, why not? And I kind of worked down a path of saying, are you telling me your employees are not important enough to you to go to their family funeral? And everybody ends up saying, we should go, we should do that, all right? And it's kind of like this. Find out and discover what the needs are. Don't just say, can I help you? Or what is it I can do? If you can, you certainly can ask that question. Offering is good. It gives you something to at least offer it. It says, I would love to be of help to you. Is there anything I can do for you? All right. But let's go further than that and discover what the needs are. Then that makes a lot better, because I mean, I always like it when, if you give a birthday present to somebody and they say, how did you know I wanted one of these? Okay. They're very impressed that you knew something about them that they would like that sort of thing. Other than, oh, a tie, thank you so much, right? And build rapport and make that connection. So we want to build contact into a connection, have that rapport with them through that conversation, and to get a potential referral. So now we talk about some of the reasons, or a little bit about why we don't do informational interviews. So the poll earlier. So I picked out about 5 different things here, that some of the barriers that I hear people telling me that stops them from doing an informational interview. So I'm not ready, I'm not connected, I'm not good at it, it's difficult to ask for help, and maybe there's something else. And so if you have something that's not those 4, please drop it into the chat window. For those of you that are not ready yet, are you ready to get ready? All right, that'd be my question to you. So I'm not connected enough. Okay, are you ready to start building your connections? Would be the situation for choice B. I'm not good at networking. Okay, are you ready to start practicing and start getting better at doing networking through your informational interviews? Right? It's difficult to ask for help. Okay, let me address that one briefly. Patty, I'm kind of choosing you because I can see you a little bit. How do you feel if I come to you and say, Patty, I understand that I'm going to pick a field that you're in, that you've been in retail for quite a while and you know a lot about retail, and I'm really interested in talking to you. Would you be willing to spend some time with me and see if maybe I should be, the retail industry would be good for me? Well, I'm looking at the idea of saying that if someone asks me for help, I'm kind of impressed because they want to hear what I have to say.
Sure.
I mean, in our jobs, anybody ever feel overutilized?
Yes.
And we feel probably underutilized. We probably can, do more than they're asking us to do. Is anybody really interested in your opinion about things? Not too often, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when somebody comes up to you and says, I'm really interested in what you have to say, and I value your opinion and your ideas and your information, I think you're going to get a lot of people who would really enjoy helping you.
Sure.
All right. So if that's true and you're like that, then why don't we ask people? So here's my statement. We need to learn how to let people help us, right? Because we feel it's just difficult. All right. I don't like doing that. But you've got so many people out there that are willing to help and would like to help and want to help. So we're doing a good thing for them by letting them help us.
Mm-hmm.
They feel better. They feel good about it. So why don't we approach it that way instead of the concern about asking for help? How to gain confidence. Don't be afraid to ask. And I've got a little bit more on that. Do some research, prepare your questions, keep it short, follow up. All right. You don't walk into an informational interview or even a choice meeting without having that preparation that I talked about earlier. So you've got that research. Now, if you have a specific area that you want to talk about, which is what you should have for any particular informational interview, a specific target, a specific amount of information. You may have 2 or 3 topics, but they're specific, all right? So that when you're talking to them, so I'm interested in talking to you about these things, all right? Something very specific. And then you have a list of questions that says, here's how I can find out what I'm looking for. Here's my 4 or 5 questions, whatever that I can say, find out if this is the right thing for me, or if this is, I'm headed in the right direction, or if I'm getting good information about the industry, or whatever your target information is in that informational interview. Keep them short, all right? And I'll show you how to do that. But whatever time frame we set, we want to keep to it. And then follow up. Follow up is really critical because thank you notes, I suggest you send thank you notes to anyone who helps you, anyone. Anyone sends you a suggestion, a thank you note. Here's something that I don't get back very much when I send out information to people and say, here's a connection you might want to talk to, or whatever it might be that go through that process, is I never hear back from them. They don't come back and say, yeah, I had a conversation, talk to them. It was good or bad or didn't work, or I learned this, or whatever it might have been. And so it would be nice when we follow up with someone who has helped us to tell them they helped us. And what was it about it that you did to help them? That makes us feel good. Anytime I talk to, say, Patty, I did talk with Mark about why you left your last job. He was a great help to me. Thank you so much for introducing me to Mark. All right. That kind of thing, that kind of feedback. And then always, how can I help you? So we're always asking how we can help. All right. A few other benefits: exposure, visibility, increased confidence, and referrals. So we get ourselves known. we're letting people know that we're looking for work through this process. If you don't let them know, then they can't help us. Sometimes we feel, it's not, I don't like to let people know that I'm unemployed, and it bothers me. Well, get over it. Just get a feeling inside that says people do want to help you. Just letting them know. Mark mentioned a story. I have a story about the person that was in I think it was a food kitchen for a nonprofit. And she said, gee, I was wanting to get into the George Bush Foundation, and I had an interview with them, but it didn't work out. And the woman she was talking to said, oh, you should have told me. We vacation with the Bushes every year. Okay. And here's this connection. Well, if you had just let somebody know, right? That's all you had to do. Visibility. You can get on the short list. Mark mentioned the story of getting into the part where in an hour or two, he got a call. People will put you at the top of the list if somebody is your champion or refers you. So, or you go right to the top of the list. They rather do that because that's easier. It gives me a feeling of easier confidence that this may be a person else rather than going through the hard part of trying to match up keywords on resumes through my job descriptions and stuff like that with the applicant tracking system. It's a lot longer, harder work. This is better. And confidence. So the more you talk with people, the more informational interviews you have, the better you are prepared and then confident in the job interview. And so always you want to build rapport and continue making connections so you can give and get referrals. All right, let's talk just a bit about the informational interview itself. So your opening says, I want to introduce myself and what's the purpose of the meeting? What am I trying to achieve? What do I want to do here? All right, very specific as to what you're trying to do. I have questions about whether it's person, company, competitors, industry, some knowledge in a specific area, whatever it is that you're targeting. I have questions ready for that particular thing. And then when I close, I'm going to ask a couple of things. So, do you know anyone else I should talk to? Right? I mean, it's always good to talk with somebody and see if you can't get one or two referrals to other people about maybe whatever came up in that interview. Chase it down. If you're looking for a particular position in a company and you've had a talk, says, well, are you aware of any positions that might fit the needs that you talked about? Another question you might ask is, do you know anyone else who would be willing to talk to me? That's the same thing as any others I should talk to, I guess. And is there something I can do to help you? Now, I'm looking for an answer. I'm not looking for just an offer, although you might not get anything. But if through that conversation, you determined there was a need there, it might be say, you know, we talked about this. I might be able to help you with that. I know a person, or I know I'll have some information about. Can I send that to you? Whatever it is, that would even be stronger. So close it. Stay within the time limit. Our time is up. I want to honor your time. I am available if you'd like to talk further, but stay to your time limit. Be prepared to answer questions about your search. It can turn to you and it can go back and the interview changes and they're the interviewer and now you are the candidate. Have your research, your resume, your biography, business cards, have that information handy. You know what's good about a business card? Is getting theirs. It's kind of like we don't care a whole lot what they do with ours, but I have theirs. I have their contact information. So when we ever get back face to face, that'll have a lot more say. And then be prepared because it could morph into a job interview and do that follow-up that we talked about, all right? Try to benefit your contact in some way before you ask for help, i.e. build a connection first, right? Build a connection first before you ask. That way, that's some of the reason why we don't want to ask for help is because we haven't built a relationship, we haven't done something. But if you help somebody else, Irma Bombeck says, you know, that's the gift that keeps on giving. I owe you back. If you've helped me, I want to help you back. That's kind of the nature of ourselves today in our personalities that we do. People that help me, I kind of want to help them back. So help them. It's not a technique. It's because you want to build a connection. This is important. This is somebody you want to have a relationship with. This is somebody you want to help. The more people you help, the greater the return you're going to be for getting help. And then you prepare some scripts. And I'll give you a short example. Now, this one assumes you've done your research and you've done your targeting and all that sort of thing. You just don't walk in and say this at the beginning. So I'm in the process of making some career decisions, and your advice would be extremely helpful. Try to learn about these things, and your insight and experience would be very important as I make this decision. So I only need about 20 minutes. Can we set up a meeting for next Tuesday or Wednesday? So the key words in this particular one is, what are you specifically looking for? Career decisions. What do you want from them? Their advice. Advice is a nice word to use. I'm looking for your opinion, your information. I seek your advice. I think it's important to hear what you have to say. And you're telling them that your insight and experience. Why do I think you are the person that should be given this information? What's important about that? It's telling them that you value them. Here's why you value them and why you're willing to listen to them. Makes me feel good when you say, gee, Walt, you know a little bit about interviewing. I appreciate that. And then you give in that time, but you don't say, let's have lunch one day. That doesn't work. Because anybody that says you want to have lunch one day said, okay, when you want to have it, let's put it on the calendar. Let's get it scheduled. So can we set up a meeting? Be specific, be targeted. Here's about requesting a referral. And this is kind of a generic way of setting it up. So I'm Fred Johnson, and how do I know about them? And is there anything we have in common? I'm interested in, here's what I'm seeking. I'm going to describe a person. If I'm looking for a person that says that would have this kind of knowledge, who might provide this specific information, whatever specific, and on any additional. So everything that's underlined is something you got to fill in, right? With your why I value them, I believe you might know the kind of people. So who do you know? I'm going to skip over this one because you can come back and look at the video that's going to be put on YouTube afterwards, just to shorten the time frame. But another example of how you might request a referral. So I'm going to throw in a few scripts so that you can get some ideas of how to say it, because scripting it out is going to help you. So suppose a contact then provides a referral. So once a name is provided, we want to do a little bit more. Well, how do you know them? In other words, what's the relationship between you and that person? All right. What's the reason that you think that that person would be a good contact? So we're doing a little due diligence on the connection to find out. So what kind of information would they have? What kind of expertise do they have? How should I contact them? Would you be willing to contact them first? May I use your name when I call them? Who else do you think I should talk to? So I'm not listing these. You don't ask all of these. You just choose the ones that are appropriate in the situation to say, which ones should I find out about? But basically, find out about the connection. Find out something about them from that person. So I'm looking to gauge the relationship between the person I'm talking to and their connection. Strong relationship, we worked together for years, means something different than, well, my wife knows them, all right, or my husband knows them, or somebody else. So find out what that is. How can I be of assistance to you? Always asking people how you can help. So if they don't provide a referral, still we're going to thank them anyway, but we can still ask some questions and say, well, is there any advice you can give me on my next steps? A very generic, open-ended question. Any advice how I might find out the information I'm looking for? What would you do if you were in my shoes? Something that says, help me, guide me through where I can go get this information. If you don't have it, where might I find it? And I still appreciate your time. Thank you so much. And how can I be of assistance to you? So here's another one with a referral. And you can read that as you go through and look at the video, because I'm going to stop soon. So the key words: career decisions, valuable advice, brief meeting, advice, insight. So I would suggest you take these keywords and say, all right, I want to use these keywords in whatever I'm talking about. So I'll highlight those. Those are the ones that I suggest that you have include in your informational interview request. All right. The key to all successful information interviewing is building a relationship first, ask for assistance second, and offer to be assistance always. The real purpose is to build relationships and develop future connections. Sport of champions. So it's not just a one-off meeting where we're going to find out something. It's a long-lasting relationship. So look at it from the long view and say, I'm trying to cultivate new professional connections. Should you practice? Well, you should practice informational interviewing as well as you practice interviewing. So Jeff and I both have the Dallas Pit Crew and the Interview Success Workshop. And I suggest you practice your informational interviews too. You can pick a partner and do that, go through that. Be glad to help. Now we can go to questions.
That's the recorded presentation. So if you have any questions, you're welcome to unmute your mic. Walt and Mark are both with us, and they can answer any questions you may have. So if you have any questions, please. David, I see you unmuted your mic.
Hey, good afternoon. And Walt, thank you for this meeting, and Mark as well. And Jeff, boy, what a great bunch of information. The information interview has always been difficult for me because it comes out looking like I'm trying to get a job interview, and it's confused right off the bat when I hear the word interview. So what's the magic words or process to make sure that they know that you're just trying to get information about the company? It sounds a little bit like, what you just said the word interview, so.
Well, I think the key word is what you mentioned. I'm just looking for some information. I'm just looking for information, and you might state, if they know that you're hunting and something like that, said, yeah, I won't be looking for interviews, but right now I'm just looking to gain some information and some suggestions, career advice, or whatever you're looking for from them to help me make these decisions. And so, focus on information. This is you interviewing them, right? So your questions are prepared for that. Now you have to be prepared for them to come back and say, well, tell me about yourself. What are you looking for? What can I do to help you at the end?
I think the key there is, information, and I'm looking for information and advice. I'm trying to decide what to do in my career. I'm trying to decide, I'd like to find out some more information about your company. I'm not sure if your company is, a company I'm interested in being with, or, I'm thinking about slightly changing my career into this path. I'd love to have your advice.
Okay. Yeah. Don't even use the word interview.
Seeking advice and guidance.
Yep. Guidance.
I'm facing this crossroad and seeking advice and guidance.
You're right, David. The topic is an informational interview, but when you're talking to people, the word interview doesn't come up.
And the whole other key is you don't send them a resume. If you're going to send them a document beforehand, it's a biography, one-page bio, because a resume screams, I'm looking for a job. A bio says, here's who I am.
I'm afraid that if I send a bio, they'd think, oh, why are you sending me your resume? How many people know what a bio is?
No, right. A resume and a bio, two different tools. I mean, I use a bio all the time for speaking engagements, so, this is just something that tells people what it is I do. It doesn't, when you put the dates and all the other detail on there, that's when it really tells somebody, that it's a resume. One-page bio is extremely effective.
Yeah, we're not talking about your bio as a way of introduction. We're talking about your bio as a tool when appropriate for them. If they're interested more about you, or if they want to talk to somebody else or whatever it might be, says, well, would you like a bio of me or something like that, have information to give to that person or something like that, so that it's got to be appropriate to use it. So I would never just send it blindly.
Can you use these words, like I said, in an email or some other vehicle versus just on the phone when you're calling somebody to give them that?
You can use those words in a LinkedIn message.
Mhm.
You can use them in an email. Yes,
I can see that being a little bit easier because when you're talking to someone on the phone, you're right there talking. So it seems like you'd be involved in a conversation. Maybe that's kind of in a difficult time for them to be talking at that moment. So
they'll strive for the best. Face-to-face is best.
Mhm.
Phone is second best, or maybe tied with a Zoom. And I don't know if you would do a Zoom call for this particular purpose, but you might, and then email is last, but it's still shoot for the best. Say, can we meet? Can we meet for coffee? Can we meet for lunch? Can I take you to lunch? Can I do something like that? Shoot for that because the face-to-face is best. And now we're getting to where, we're kind of out of the COVID pandemic era, where people might be willing to meet us. Buying somebody lunch, it's like if you feed them, they will come. It's not a bad technique to use. And most people, eat lunch. So pick them up, take them to lunch.
yeah, I've heard the meeting for coffee is really the mild in between. So it's not
The
so much
trick-
like a meal, but it's
Yeah.
you are talking.
The trick is where you meet.
Mhm.
Now, if you want to go meet for lunch at, let me just pick a place. Anybody been to Texas Roadhouse? Noisiest restaurant you can have.
Right.
I mean, it's just not a good place to meet, right? So, you want to pick a spot, have a spot, know where they, what's convenient for them, what areas around there. Let them pick a restaurant, let them pick a place or something like that, if you want to do that. But shoot for face-to-face. Why not? No, we can't do that. I was, well, how about, would you like to meet over Zoom? Or would you like,
Right.
just go ahead and try to do the top of the order.
Mhm.
I'd rather have you on Zoom than a phone call.
Yeah, or a FaceTime or however that works.
Right. Yeah. However that works. Whatever software or application you want to use, it's online.
Great. Do we have any other questions? Questions? Walt or Mark, any last comments before we move on?
Well, I wanted to drop a document that I prepared about LinkedIn connections. Could I share my screen and show a brief this? Do we have a couple minutes to do that?
Yeah, let me make you a
Make
co-host.
me a co-host.
Share. Okay, you can share now. For 25th,
All right.
hard to believe another month, maybe in the books, your 25th.
See here.
Our agenda today may be.
All right. Is that available for everyone?
Yes, it is.
So making LinkedIn connections. This is one of my pet peeves. How to do this and do it properly. Here's my suggestions. One, you got to be prepared because you might need a resume or a biography at some point during this meeting. You also have to be prepared for a job interview. Some of these informational interviews morph into a job interview. Okay, that can happen. So you got to be prepared for that before you do that. So why are you selecting this person? Research them on LinkedIn, Google, second-degree connections, whatever. You don't want to walk into a person that's blind about any information about them. What is it about them? Okay. When you request the connection, include a personal note. How do you know them? And what is it? There's something about them that's in common or an item where you have a lot of interest in that request. I can't stand the just click the button type. If a request is not accepted, don't give up. All right, send another note. Have some persistence to see if we can still talk with them. If they accept it, send that thank you note, okay, with a message. Include a request for a brief call to discuss some item of interest or something common, whatever it is. Provide a time limit and suggest a specific date and time. Now, this is called building a connection, not a contact. I want to talk to you more about that. In the meeting, you get to request more information about them and then look for ways to help them. You heard me say in the procedure in this presentation that saying, well, if there's anything I can do to help you, let me know. We just want to eliminate that and just say, while I was talking to you, I found out about this. Would you be interested in me something, or maybe I could send you something about whatever. And then be prepared for answering these 3 questions. Tell me about yourself. What are you looking for? And they might ask, well, how can I help you? All right, what is it specifically? Summarize your action items and dates to accomplish. So set time limits and things. It's like, well, I'll get back to you or something. When? Not, oh, that's going to happen. And then end with suggestions you may have to help them, or at least ask, you know, how may I help you? And never use the default button. So I want to use a quick example. I'll stop sharing it. So I happen to know David because he's participated in some of the meetings. He's been on the pit crew, but I looked him up on LinkedIn. And here's things that I could talk about with David. Number 1, he posted something about a war reunion. Now I'm interested in why he posted that. Why? Well, I was in Vietnam and I came back. There were no flags. There was no celebrations. There was no anything. You know, I just came back. So I'm kind of interested in why he posted that. He complimented Brandy Shea for her Strengths Finder. So I'll be interested, well, what did you learn, David, about yourself on the Strengths Finder presentation from Brandy? He took some course in 3 terms of advanced creative sequence. Now, since I'm in marketing, I'd say, what is that? I'd be interested to know more about what that is, okay? If I'm a runner, me and David got a huge connection here, all right? Because if you look at him, he's done marathons, and he's published a couple of things. One was about creating a marathon mindset. Another about his experience with the Boston Marathon bombing. So I might be interested in talking to him about those things. He says he does some career development coaching. Well, gee, I'm in that. So I might ask him, what's his experience? So, and he knows Mike Ray. He knows Caesar Hubbard, who took the workshop. So there's a whole bunch of information that I found about him that I could talk about and pick a couple of things to talk about in my meeting with him. And I might be able to find out where I can help him in one of those areas. Oh, you do some career development coaching? Well, I'm in that business too. Anyway, that's just an example.
Well, great. Mark, any last words? Nope. Okay. All right. Well, let me just, our time's about over here. Let me just share Career DFW, Career USA. We're putting on training 4 days a week. Please join us. Tomorrow, being the 4th Thursday of the month, we'll be talking about networking, outside the box networking, unconventional ways to get noticed with Jason Hopper. Jason's with Jewish Family Services and Career Center there. This Friday, we talked about the one-page bio a little bit. Our speaker is Minna Brown. She wrote a book along with Paula Asanoff about the one-page bio and how to introduce yourself, how to communicate when you're saying hi to everybody. So join us this Friday for the one-page bio. Next Tuesday, our LinkedIn presentation will be with Kurt Vandermatter, LinkedIn from a recruiter's eye. Kurt spends the big bucks for the full-blown recruiting package of LinkedIn, and he'll show us how that works. As we've mentioned before, as you saw earlier, there's all 13 parts of this workshop are on the Career USA YouTube channel. The first 5 sessions talk about what do you do before the interview. The next 5, what do you handle during the interview? And then some advanced topics at the end, 11, 12, and 13. And today you saw session number 11, how to shorten your job search through job interviewing. This session was recorded. It will be on the Career DFW Facebook page and the Career USA YouTube channel. On the Career USA YouTube channel, you will find all these sessions. Click on playlist. Every video that I upload goes into a playlist. And then instead of clicking on the video down below, click where you see that green arrow, view full playlist, and then up will come a list of all the different dates in chronological order. Just scroll down to find the topic that you're interested in. If you're not receiving emails about our workshops and you'd like to join the Career USA mailing list, please send an email to Career USA, the +subscribe at groups.io. You will not get spam, but what you will get is the topic of the day, the title of the day, and most importantly, the Zoom link of the day. That way you can grab your lunch or grab your breakfast and join us for our meetings. Please remember, Career DFW, we're a 501c3 nonprofit organization. Mark, Walt are both volunteers. I'm a volunteer. Everything I've done over the last 13 years has just been to help you land your next great opportunity. Career DFW survives on donations. Please consider making one when you get your next job. So thank you very much for joining us today, and hopefully we'll see you later in the week.
Hey, thank you, guys.